You know, you accepted that.
You know your years in this.
Right. And that you've accepted to move into that responsibility, accepted to move in that way. So yeah, you're all that because that's what they charged you with. You're not all that because you were born something special. You're all that because that's what they charged you with, and you accepted it, and therefore don't deny it with your own insecurity. So, you know, I say false humility, but it's actually insecurity. Yeah. And so challenging insecurity is a pretty difficult thing.
It is.
Because it lives in our body. Yeah. And
don't nobody want to know we have have insecurities as we get older. Yeah. That's part of, I think, the intimate conversations that we have all the time. And when people started calling me Mama Omi, like about the time I turned 50, I was like, hold up, wait a minute.
We're not ready.
Like, am I being shoved into eldership? And I felt like, you know, it was like digging my feet in, like, skirt. Wait a minute. What are you doing? Because legit, just like you, like, some folk I know the year before, it was just like, what's going on, Omi? And then all of a sudden I became Mama Omi. And I remember the first time it landed on my ear, I was like, what is that? What? Since when? So that's an interesting thing. But getting back to this thing of insecurities, and also just like awareness of where you're still growing and moving post 50. Do you feel like it's hard sometimes because you have such a public persona, not just in Durham or even in North Carolina and the South, but nationally, there's so many people who know of Spirit House. They know who you are. Do you find it it's hard, and I feel like this is me cheating because I kind of already know the answer to this question. Do you feel like it's hard to be able to express the places where you feel insecure, or the places where you feel like you're still growing and you just really don't have an answer?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for multiple reasons. Number one is just because I'm a Black woman. And as Black women, we're put on a pedestal, we're put up on a shelf, we're only expected to perform in a particular way. And if we show anything else, for us, it means there's something wrong with us. The rest of the world is allowed to be human, and we are not. Right. And then put on top of that a woman who is seen as a leader, and that is certainly not allowed to be human, or to still be working through things that, you know, I've been working through since my childhood, that still live in my body. Right. Or if I'm doing that, it has to happen in private. It should not happen in public. No one should be able to see that, is what I feel is communicated to me, and what I feel like I'm pushing against all the time, because I want my humanness on display. Even the hard parts. I want that on display. And I feel like we have done such a disservice to our mamas by not allowing that space for them. And I refuse to continue to move in that way. In part in honor of them, and in part in honor, of course, of those coming up behind me, us, so that they know always that it's okay for people to see your humanness. If they're uncomfortable, they need to deal with it. You get to be human. Part of it, you know, I can feel myself, even as I'm talking, giving you the movement answer, giving you the leader answer, and less of the human answer. Yeah. And that's where I then have to, like...
What's the human answer then?
I mean, I don't...
Do you always feel good about where you are?
Oh, no. I do not always feel good about where I am. It's a struggle every day. It's a struggle to feel good, to find joy, to accept who I am and where I am. I think I told you a couple of days ago that I don't recognize myself when I look in the mirror. And that's a pretty profound thing to say. But I don't. And it might be some of this idea that who is Mama Nia with her head wrapped and her sage, her white.
Yeah.
is not necessarily the person that I see when I look in the mirror. And the difference between the space that lives in between is pretty vast. It's actually pretty huge. Right. I wouldn't say that I was living in a space where, it was just one step over and then I'm here. Mm-hmm. There's a vast expanse between parts of myself. Because I also don't want to say this as if I'm being performative or fake. Mm-hmm. There's just an expanse between some parts of myself and other parts of myself. Yeah. And I have to be able to move through all of that. Yeah. So when I'm feeling vulnerable and sometimes I'm like, I'm just a girl. Yeah. And folk will look at me like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. But I'm just a girl. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm always, at this point, I'm 56, so I believe just a girl is going to always exist. I don't think that's going anywhere. Right. And then there's, Mama Nia. Yeah. And those are not the same.
Yeah. And that's not a contradiction, right? I do think it would be so much easier for people to consume if you only were one-dimensional, right? So you were consistently the person who they expect you to be or the person that they have interacted with, as if a new day doesn't present a new opportunity for them to see another part of you, right? So they're like, no, I met that person on that day, and that's the person I expect to show up all the time. Right. And so when your humanness shows up, they're like, no, I need you to tuck that in. Where's the other person? Right. And you're like, well, the other person is not available today. You're going to get who's available. And sometimes the conditions set that. Sometimes my own insecurities will set that. This thing around not recognizing yourself is, I feel like, a really powerful thing as you are actually changing. Like, there are parts of myself, both physically and I think emotionally, that are looking new to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to be like, what am I looking at? Because sometimes when I get up in the morning, I'm looking in the mirror, or if I'm just doing a body check of myself, I'm like, well, this is new. And how do I not let anxiety start to creep in, or judgment or whatever creep in around the newness, and just be like, well, that's new. Is that newness something that I feel like I want to be able to walk with? Is that newness something that I should be concerned about? Whatever. Instead of immediately going to, oh, that's just some old shit. Like, here's some new old shit that I'm dealing with, and The Root posted a video in the last 24 to 48 hours of Ayanna Pressley.
Yes.
And I cried because I understand. I feel like I'm getting emotional right now. Like, I understand, as someone who moves in a community known by the way I look. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. You could be all the way down at the end of the street and folk be like, Mama Nia's down there. Because they know your shape. They know your style. They know your persona. And to publicly say something that you all know me as is gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Mm-hmm. And I was like, my God, you are so amazing. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to fall into and aren't you a strong black woman for doing that? Because I almost fell into it. I was like, you know what? Aren't you amazing for making yourself vulnerable and still not being very clear about what the hell this means for you?
What I appreciated about it at the end was basically her saying, and I'm still getting used to this. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like the video was her avatar of being a strong black woman. Right. I felt like she created this video in order to help herself be in this new normal. Mm-hmm. And yeah, everyone can see it, but I'm still trying to figure out what this new normal means for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm letting you all into this part of me being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt about it. It made me feel really good and not like see her as someone who was this powerful woman and cut off her humanness. Right. I can't imagine what living with alopecia that came on suddenly would mean. I think about things like that, often. Yeah. I have even little fears about it, about what it means to not be seen as the person that you've been seen as for so long. what would that mean? And then I also want, to some degree, that kind of unmasking to say, well, this is actually who I am, and to see what would happen with that.
Yeah, what would happen for you or for the people around you?
Right. What would happen? What would the reactions be? And yes, what would happen for me? I was in a meeting a few months ago at Duke with a whole bunch of people who worked at Duke and UNC and Central and business owners, and I revealed that I didn't finish college, that I have no college degree. And I revealed it in a very proud, here I am commanding this room, and here I am just a regular community person, and you all have no faith in people in community, and look at me, and you wouldn't know that I, didn't finish college. I don't have a master's degree or PhD or any of that. But as the meeting progressed, I was full of shame. I could hardly breathe, and I wanted to run out of the room. Not because anyone had any reaction to what I said, but because I had revealed myself in a room full of people who now knew something that was, to me, pretty intimate, because they had other assumptions about me.
Right.
And so I didn't expect to have that kind of a reaction, because it's not anything that I'm ashamed of. Right. And it's not anything that I don't have a problem saying it.
Right.
But I don't know if it's because maybe my reasoning was not necessarily tied to revealing my humanness as much as I was saying it almost as a way of trying to punish the other folks in the room.
Yeah, putting them in their place.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that never feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing I've definitely done. And I feel like, I took this sabbatical, which I am actively putting into the universe that you're taking a sabbatical. So this is just like sabbatical 101, sabbatical prep for you. So it's just, you can tell me thank you next year. You're like, thank you, Omi, again for like the sabbatical prep. You're like, you're welcome. Right. Yeah. And part of the in the sabbatical prep of unlearning is like when I feel like I have to announce a thing to people to put them in their place, to make myself feel safe, or to protect people I feel like are not safe. So it's either I don't feel safe, or the people who I feel like I am working with or for, or a member of, to keep them safe. And then like I will deliberately say something that's shocking to make people be like, oh. And it's been used as a tool. It's rarely been used as a way to show my humanness.
Right.
And I think that this last year of therapy, as well as the break from movement work, was my therapist consistently asking me, how are you going to show people your true self? Because your true self is the thing that really wants to be seen. And because we have fear around our true selves, either not being seen or valued or harmed, we've created these things to keep us safe.
Right.
He's saying it's not a problem unless that thing that keeps you safe harms you or harms other people. So you can slowly begin to like unpack what that means. And so I've definitely done that. Like when people don't know my journey as a mom, I would sometimes take great pleasure in being like, oh yeah, I wasn't married when I had Jay. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, no. I have 2 different fathers of my children. And so folk are like, what? Because there's an assumption, because of my packaging or the way I move in the world or where I've been, that that's not going to be a truth for me. I don't know if I've ever told y'all I lived in public housing. I lived in Walnut Terrace in Raleigh. That was a very interesting, challenging time in my life when Shay was a little guy. And I don't think that I have actually said to folk, as we've been trying to figure out ways to support Black moms living in public housing, that I lived in public housing, for a year. And what that experience was like for me in my 20s, of trying to figure out like how to make ends meet and just being so incredibly underemployed. It was just ridiculous.
I too lived in public housing in my 20s. So, yeah.
Listen, and so when we walk into a space and we can command a room, and people expect us to be able to not only facilitate or train people, but they're gonna sing a song and smudge and they're gonna heal us, and you like, for real. I would just like for somebody to rub my damn feet.
There you go.
I would love somebody to rub my feet. And so